Hey dudes, it's Sunset. Happy Halloween! We've got a few updates for you right before the league launches. 4 updates, to be specific. Anyway, here's Larold.
Okay, and so the first of these 4 posts is the Twitch drops. This is a little bit of a roundabout way of saying that we are going to be streaming on Twitch at Larold Live, and you should check us out there. You can also watch us on YouTube, we'll be streaming there as well, but you can't get Twitch drops on YouTube, can you? So there are going to be 4 things that come from Twitch, 3 that are drops, and then 1 is like a sub reward. If you give, I think it's like subscribe to 2 or gift 2 subs, you'll get that very cool looking portal. But then the first week of the league, the Twitch drops will be this nice looking like table, and then this Breach Lord's claw character effect. You can see it swirling around, looks pretty tight. And that table, not only does it look interesting, it also tracks all of your gold throughout the entire league, which is kind of neat. It actually has like breakdowns for gambling and stuff like that. The incarnation of Dread Portal effect is the one that comes from giving, either gifting or just subscribing to 2 Twitch channels. So, do that if you really want that. Admittedly pretty cool looking portal effect. And then the Zesh Slam rare finisher effect is for the second week, and this was just a Twitch drop. Again, both sets of weeks, you watch 3 hours and then you get the Twitch drop. Boom, there you go. It's the same Zesh Slam from PoE 2 that's probably killed you a million times if you're as good at the game as I am, and now you can get to have it yourself, and that's pretty cool. GGG also showed off the challenge rewards for this Keepers of the Flame League, and it's the Keeper of the Flame armor set, very similar name, and it looks really cool. It has 2 versions. It has the non-flaming version and then this purple flame version, and it's going to be available in Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2. As soon as you unlock it, you start unlocking at 12 challenges, and they didn't say what the final one is, probably somewhere in the 30s, so you will have to play a lot to unlock the full set, but it looks pretty tight. And they showed it off on all the different classes. I really like this a lot. You've got like hands on the knees and then around the like collarbone and like the whatever belt buckle, and then you've also got like fingerprints, a little bit of an Elden Ring influence happening here with all the fingerprints and the fire happening. Just a cool looking transmog set, Very, very big fan of it. And then also, you don't have to constantly be on fire either. You can turn that off piece by piece, which is pretty nice. They're really hitting new heights in microtransaction development over at GGG. All right, now let's move on to the 2 things that are going to actually affect game balance. I think the things that people will care more about. And those would be a massive nerf to Kinetic Rain. I think a lot of people expected this. The previous numbers on this were 150% attack damage and effectiveness of attack damage, and then also 110 attack speed on the base attack. Now it's down to 100% and then 25 and 25. That got absolutely gutted. The kinetic anomalies that spawn out of Kinetic Rain were bumped down from like 164, something like that, to 150. So that's a smaller nerf, but still like a massive amount of damage reduction happening there. Also, this only fires 10 projectiles. It used to fire 13, so that's like a nerf there as well. So a lot of people are saying the skill is dead on arrival. I was super excited about playing this as like a 2nd or 3rd skill. Not anymore, really. I think we're kind of looking at this and going, yeah, that looks pretty dead. And then Kinetic Rain of Impact, the transited version of this seems interesting. Maybe still not great, though, to be honest, given that it's like 135 attack damage and effectiveness of attack damage. That's okay. Like, wands may have a chance, but it's going to be entirely on like Wall of Force to really make wands work. On the other hand, there was a big buff to Conflagration. This skill got its base damage. Previously, in the initial like unveil teaser page, it was dealing like 2,600 base fire damage per second. Now it's dealing over 3,000 base fire damage per second, so like over 15% base damage buff. If this is able to stack, it's going to do dramatically more damage than Toxic Rain, and probably just steal Toxic Rain's thunder. The only limitation to it is, it is fire. So you're not getting chaos damage scaling, wither or anything like that. And then also you do actually have to shoot the arrow up and then walk into it, which is a huge limitation that's just not present for Toxic Rain. So we're still fully committed to TR, PF all the way through, bursts and all of that, but like there's potential that this could wind up being a really good skill, or it could be absolute garbage. It really just depends on whether you're able to stack multiple of that base Conflagration dot onto a single enemy or not. There were a couple of other updates in the long changed Jim's post, but just the one thing that we really wanted to point out here is Raise Zombie of Falling. There were some meme ideas with the Katarina tree. Maybe you could like make that zombie live after dying, and they added in the specific line to point out like, no, you can't. This zombie cannot survive the impact, so if you go Katarina Ascendancy, you can have minions that aren't capable of dying, but the Raise Zombie of Falling will not be one of them. And then the final change is just simply something that was added into the patch notes, and it's this section of changes right here. The stack size of gold has been increased by 15% at all levels. Penalties to gold drops from Harbinger, Legion, Ultimatum, Expedition, Abyss, Bestiary, Affliction, and Harvest, which is quite a mouthful, has been lowered, which means all of those mechanics are going to be better for farming gold, and gold is just going to be better 15% across the board, but also gold fees are being reduced for most currency items and Life Force. That's great because Life Force was kind of a pain to trade early on. You know, you're trading thousands of Life Force at a time, and the gold cost was just too high on that. Those are definitely like very good changes to make a lot of mechanics easier and just ease a lot of the frustrations of gold pains, but mostly, this is a huge buff to Kalgur, to Settlers as a league mechanic, having gold be something that is more easily attainable through all the other different league mechanics, and something you can take and just funnel right into Kalgur, or, you know, do 2 maps and then you have enough gold to do all of the trading you need to do for an entire weekend. That's really nice as well. And then one little change here that was just very much a bug that should have been in the first round of patch notes, the idea that the Divine Font could be used on corrupted gems. That was never supposed to work that way. Now you have to have a dedication to the goddess. So if you're wanting to do like the elevated versions of Ascendancy trials and maps, this is definitely something that is like more valuable now because of this, because Labyrinth running is so much better as a mechanic now that you don't have to actually zone out of the Labyrinth to trade gems with people. You just put them in asynchronous trade. This is going to make those labs and the like special versions of labs like Dedication to the Goddess or Gift to the Goddess be significantly more valuable. So, you know, something to do if you're willing to run through those Uber Lab trials. All right, that pretty much covers it for today's launch day little update. I'm sure I say stuff at the end of these videos normally. Like, subscribe, join the Discord, do all those things. We'll see you on Twitch or here on YouTube. Oh right, it's Halloween, so I get to make one more spooky movie recommendation here, and this time we're gonna go with Funny Games. This is like a movie that rewrote a lot of pathways in my brain. It's super duper scary. It's kind of a movie that is punishing you, the viewer, for watching it. So highly recommend. There you go. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to help us make more PoE content, become a channel member or come boost the Discord. Thanks for watching. Bye.